So today we're going to have the computer do some more complicated math for us. But the great thing, once again, is that we don't have to do any of the math. The computer does all the math for us. The business scenario we've got going here could be like a school, or could be like, any kind of collection of data where you have to take those data and, slam them together or figure out stuff based on numbers, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to start over here in column K. For each one of these, if we're pretending, I guess, that these are students, for each one of these students, we are going to figure out of the 6 subjects that we have scores for, we're going to have the computer figure out an average, find their highest score and their lowest score. And if you've been in school a while, you know that this is the kind of thing that teachers do. Like the overall average, that's where your final grade comes from, right? And the highest and lowest, some teachers say, I'll drop your lowest score, or I'll, whatever your highest, yakety schmackety, right? So it's pretty common stuff that you end up dealing with in the real world. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to actually program the spreadsheet to do what they call a math function. Now, you probably haven't heard that term before, so let me explain it to you a little bit. If you were in a math class and you're sitting there with a calculator, paper, pencil, and you had to average those 6 numbers together, how would you do it? Right, you add them up, you divide by 6. Why divide by 6? Because there's 6, exactly. There's 6 numbers in the list that you just added up. Now, here's the great thing about using the computer. That set of rules, which math people sometimes call a function, is already programmed into the spreadsheet. This spreadsheet has thousands of functions that it can already do. You don't even have to know the rules. You don't have to know add them up, divide by, blah, 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 blah. All you have to know is how to tell the computer what you want it to do. And the magic thing about all functions, and this, a lot of kids have a hard time getting their head around this, but all of those thousands of functions that the software can do, they all work exactly the same way. Programmers would say they have the same syntax. Syntax means that they happen in the same order, the same language. They all have exactly the same syntax. So if you learn the syntax, if you learn that pattern, you can literally program a spreadsheet to do any function you want at any time, no matter what. So this is how it works. If I'm in column K2, or cell K2, and I want the computer to do something for me, to calculate something for me, what do I start with? Equal sign, always. If you want that cell to actually perform something for you, that's the secret code. Start with an equal sign. Now, all functions have exactly 2 parts. The name of the function, which is where you tell the computer what function you want it to perform, and the argument of the function, which is where you tell the computer what cells to include in that function, or what numbers to include in that function. So there's a name and an argument. The name always goes first. Okay? So to call out the function we want it to do, we just have to name it. The name of this function is actually just average. You literally just type it. Make sure you spell it right, because computers are big on spelling. You with me? You see where I'm at? So I got equals, I got average. Now, notice you've got those average, average A, average ifs, S. Those are all like different functions that start with the word average. So in order for the computer to know that we're done with the name and ready to shift over to the argument, we have to put in a separator. And the separator for functions is always parentheses. Always. So your argument always goes in parentheses. Notice as soon as I punch Shift 9 and put in my opening parentheses, notice my computer's now, it's not asking me what kind of function I want to do anymore. Now it's asking me what the numbers are that I'm going to apply to this function. See that? Is your computer saying that right now, right? Like average, number, it's asking for numbers. So my favorite way to put the numbers in, if they're just in cells like they are right here, is just to click and drag. You just do like that. Notice that that punches in E2 colon J2 in your function. Now you could type it if you want. Like you could do E2 colon J2 or E2 through J2, get you to the same place. Close up that function, you hit enter, and it just averages those 6 cells together for you. Name of the function goes first. Arguments always in parentheses. Right? And if you get used to typing them, it's pretty quick. There are some auto sum functions and stuff in spreadsheets, but I don't teach those because if you end up in a different style of spreadsheet like Google Sheets, they're different. But if you know the functions, and all you have to remember is the name. All the functions work the same. If you know how to write a function, it works in every spreadsheet that exists. Yes, there are spreadsheets you can run right on your phone. Now, you do have to be careful when you're clicking and dragging. Don't put the K column in your argument. You can't average a cell that has the average itself in the argument. That will give you an error. So you be careful with that. Remember, spreadsheets are exceptionally precise. Just tell it exactly what you want. Okay, now before you get typing all the way down the column, skip over here to column L. So you're in L2. We're going to write a function that looks in exactly the same argument. So it's still going to look in E2 through J2. That hasn't changed because that's where the original numbers are. We're going to write a function that finds the highest score in this same argument. So it's the same 6 cells. These are the scores we've got for this student, right? So the argument's identical, E2 through J2. But this isn't going to find an average. It's going to find which of those numbers report to us which of those numbers is the highest. And you can see that 95 is the highest. That's easy. But this is actually a pretty small spreadsheet, so don't get confused on that. Even though it's a small spreadsheet, I'd still rather have the computer do the work for me, and you'll find out why in just a second. Okay, so obviously, again, I'm going to start with an equal sign. That's how it works. The name of the function, which is actually the only thing you need to know, because the functions all work the same, and the name always goes first, argument always goes second, and it's the same frickin' argument, right? So the name of this function is actually max, M-A-X, as in maximum. Got your parentheses, got your argument, bam, 95. Right? Pretty quick, pretty easy, pretty logical. Name of the function goes first, argument goes second, argument's always in parentheses. Now, if the name of the function to find the highest score in a group of scores is max, as in maximum, what do you think the name of the function is for here in column L to find the lowest? Min, as in minimum, right? Totally logical. Nothing confusing about that. You didn't even have to learn it. You just already even knew it. It was absolutely intuitive. Crazy like that. Remember, this program is designed to do math, and it's designed to be as user-friendly as possible while still being versatile. Before you all type your fingers to the bone, let me show you a couple tricks. Because look what we're creating here. Okay, notice this. You can just watch my screen for a second. I got equals average E2, J2, right? And then I got average E3, J3, and then I got E4, J4, and then I'd have E5, and then it'd be E6, E7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, right? And if you remember back to the first day that we talked about spreadsheets, you would remember that a computer can fill a series all by itself. Huh? Magic fill, anybody? That ringing a bell? I kind of made a big deal about it on first day. Of course, you got to remember where it is. So as a recap, if I have something in the cell and I grab that little handle in the lower right hand corner of my activity frame, It will take whatever's in the cell and it will copy it as far as I want to drag it. And in copying it, if it's something that looks like should be a series, it will turn it into a series. Magic fill. Which means, how many times did I actually have to type those equations? One time. Let me show you what I can do here. So I type this average function and I think to myself, well, it looks right. It's giving me a plausible answer, so I'm good with that one. How about the max function? Yeah, highest number is 95. That looks good. How about the min function? Yeah, 52. That's the lowest number. So that's giving me a good answer. I could actually highlight all three of these. Magic fill the entire frame. Think about how much math you just did. That's crazy talk right there. That's the easiest math you've done all week. Now, one more time. It is supremely important where your mouse cursor is when you push the button. If you want to select multiple cells, you put the cursor dead center on the first one and click and drag. If you want to move a cell, you put your cursor right on the edge so that you get that different cursor. Click and drag, it moves whatever's in the cell. If you want a magic fill, you got to click exactly on that little tiny square in the lower right-hand corner. It's the same mouse, it's the same finger clicking the same button. It is supremely important that your cursor's in whatever place you want it to be in to get the results you're looking for. Now, let's talk about the magic fill for a second. If you remember back to the assignment we finished yesterday, I know it was forever ago, why didn't we use a magic fill on this bad boy? Was I just being some kind of jackwagon and not telling you about it, or what? What? Every single one of those is a different equation. There is no series here. And I could try it, like 8 times 4 right there, but if I magic fill this down, what am I going to get when I let go of this mouse button? It's just going to be 32 all the way down, because every single one of these has 8 times 4 in it now. There's no series here. Okay? That is the first rule of using the magic fill button. You have to be noticing that you're typing the same thing over and over and over again. Notice the only thing that changes here is the number, which looks just like my examples back on day 1. I did like student 1 or dog 1. I had some letters in there and a number. And when I did the magic fill, the only thing that changed was the number. So if you're not creating a series in magic fill, I ain't going to do jack for you. Rule number 1. Rule number 2, notice that all of my answers are in a straight line. See that? The magic fill does not work on a diagonal. It only goes left and right, up and down. It will not go on diagonal. All my answers must be in a straight line. Also notice, here's my first argument, E2 through J2, right? Here's my second argument, third argument, fourth, fifth, sixth. Notice all of my arguments are in a straight line. If those 3 things are true, number 1, you realize you're creating a series. Number 2, all of your arguments, all of your answers are in a straight line. And number 3, all of your arguments are in a straight line. It's like 100% chance that you can use a magic fill. For instance, down here in the totals, E18. As a teacher, if I wanted to give my class an overall grade on subject 1, right? Which one of these functions would I use down here in E18 to get that overall grade? Absolutely, average. And the whole column becomes my argument. Now, as a teacher, would I want to average subject 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 as well? Probably. So I'm going to be creating a series. That's rule number 1. Are all of my answers in a straight line? Yeah, that's pretty much straight line. So that's rule number 2. Here would be my first argument, then would be my second argument, my third, fourth, fifth, sixth. Are all of my arguments in a straight line? Yeah, they're 15 high, but it's still a straight line. So almost 100% chance the magic fill is going to work right across the bottom there for me. And just think about that for a second. With one drag and drop, I just averaged hundreds of numbers together in groups of 15. Now, so you don't have to color these. I'm going to color these for our next little example here. These numbers that I just colored red, okay, those are actual numbers. Like a teacher scored an assignment, actually typed a number into the spreadsheet. And the ones I just colored in blue, those are actually all equations, right? They're not actually numbers that were typed in. They're equations. Okay. So down here in total entries, right here in E20, I want to know as a teacher, how many assignments did I actually grade? That means I'm talking about the numbers in red. Those are actually graded assignments. The teacher graded the assignment, typed the number in, right? So if I was super lazy and coincidentally wanted to do this the hard way, I could just count these up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That would take a while. If I was a math kind of person, I could do length times width. So I could do 6 times 15. That would give me an answer, wouldn't it? But since I'm a computer person, I'll make computer count those up for me. Right here, E20. And the name of the function, which is the only thing you really need to know to write this, is just count. The name of the function literally is just count. Which means I just told you everything you need to know to write that equation and count up how many assignments were actually graded. Right? Because you were paying attention the whole time. And how many assignments did I actually grade? Name of the function is count. Don't forget your parentheses. Argument goes second. The argument is literally E2 through J16. What number did it give you? Yes, should be a 90 in there. Now, keep in mind, this is where people that haven't been keeping up with me start to get all crazy. I don't really care that the answer is 90. I'm not a math teacher. I care that when I check it, it's got that equation in that cell. And I would bet right now everybody in here is smart enough that in E22 you can write me a function that finds the highest score in the whole class. And in E24 you can write me a function that finds the lowest score in the whole class. And the highest score in the whole class is 95. And the lowest? 30. Now, let's take a look at some of these numbers for a second. You don't necessarily have to do this on your screen, but one of the interesting things about this entire project / worksheet is that this exact scenario affects every single one of us every single day. Now you're saying, well, spreadsheets don't touch me at all. Well, yeah, they do. Because believe it or not, Skyward is a spreadsheet. If you've ever looked at a teacher's grade book, it looks suspiciously like this, doesn't it? The difference is Excel, the spreadsheet that we are using in front of us, is generic. It's designed so that you can program it to do anything you want. You can program it to track finances, to track taxes, to track inventory. Whatever you want it to track, it can track. Right? Skyward is designed specifically to just track grades and attendance. But this whole average for each assignment, like Skyward does that automatically. Like I don't even have to tell it to do that. It just automatically does it. So it's pre-programmed just to handle grades and attendance. But they work the same way. So here's kind of a scenario that I find helps people open their eyes a little bit. Let's look at Miss White's scores up here at the top. Specifically, let's look at her final average. Right now, she's got a 75%, right? If that percentage hit her report card today, what letter grade would that be? 75% is what grade? It's a C. But let's say for a second that Miss White was absent for subject 1. Notice that my whole spreadsheet just auto-recalculated, right? So my overall average isn't 61.1 anymore. But you look at her overall average, it dropped from a 75%, which is C, to a 71%, which is C minus. Miss White comes back to school. Her teacher's like, hey, you know, you missed subject 1 here. You probably should make that up sometime. But no, Miss White is too smart for this teacher. She looks at her grade, she sees that she's got a C minus, and she knows to herself, or she's heard, that D's get degrees, right? Who's heard that? D's get degrees. And that's a C minus, which is infinitely better than a D, right? She's in the clear. But what has to happen to that absence before that teacher can turn their grades in at the end of the quarter? What does the teacher do to it? What do we change it to? No, it would already be an asterisk, because in Skyward we don't use the AB. We use the asterisk in place of the AB, but it works the same. I choose the AB because it's easier to see. So I can put an asterisk in there. I mean, look, it doesn't make any difference. It's still 71%. But the asterisk can't stay there because that's it's like an uncalculated grade. It's got to change to something. And Miss White never turned it in. So what's it going to change to? Watch what happens. It's going to change to a 0. You see what happened to her overall average? Did that D really get a degree? No, because a 59 is an F. She just skipped out on credit for that class that she's been attending all quarter long, except for that one day on subject 1, and it caused her to go from a C to an F because she didn't pay attention to the teacher. And teachers know this. Teachers know that zeros destroy your average. But let's look at why that's so different, because how many points is an asterisk worth? None. So why with the asterisk in there she got a C minus, and with a 0 in there she's got a 59%? Exactly. Think back to how you do averages. You add it all up and divide by how many numbers are in your list. So if the computer looks in this argument right here, how many numbers right now are in this list? 5. So it's going to add them up, divide by 5. But if I put a 0 in there, now there's 6 numbers in that list. So it's going to add them up, divide by 6. That's the difference. Now here's the part that's the killer, because teachers will tell you this. They'll tell you zeros destroy averages. But let's say Miss White was absent for subject 1 just because she hates that crap. Like she was absent on purpose. But she knows that zeros destroy your average. So she comes back and she does kind of a half job on subject 1. And instead of getting a 95, which would have been an A, she just gets 50, just 50% for doing half the work, right? Now look what happened to her average. Instead of going from a C minus to an F, it only went from a C minus to a D plus. That's the way averages work, guys. Skyward is in fact a spreadsheet. It works exactly like this. In fact, get this. When I do my grading, you know, because there's some people that there's some people that never turn their assignments in, right? My grade book will look something like that when I finish grading an assignment, right? There's actually a button on Skyward right here when I'm grading an individual assignment. There's a button. It's right above the numbers. It says change unscored to zeros. I click that button once. It finds all of the asterisks in that column, instantly changes them to zeros, and all of those people's grades just went down the crapper because zeros destroy averages. Absolutely take them out like the trash. So first of all, never believe it if people tell you D's get degrees. And second of all, know that zeros destroy averages. Like, even if you did half the work, that's why I tell students in my class, if you've got something half done, I'm more than willing to give you half credit. Turn it in. I don't care. If you decide you want more credit later, turn it in again. I don't care. Now, I know not all teachers are like that, but I don't care. It doesn't take me that long to grade. Also notice, FYI, if there's an asterisk in there, notice that my total entries does not say 90 anymore. It says 89. So what does that mean that that count function is actually looking for? What is it actually counting? It's not counting number of cells. It's counting the number of cells that have a number in them. And this asterisk is not a number, so it does not count it. Once again, the spreadsheet deals with letters and numbers completely differently. They're totally different types of data. All right, next part. So here, this is kind of weird. Something you probably never noticed, but is actually kind of a big deal in the computer world, and especially in like social media, online shopping world. Okay, did you ever notice, like, when you sign up for something, like you sign up for like an Amazon account or a social media account, Instagram, whatever, Snapchat, doesn't matter. When you go in there to make an account for yourself, did you ever notice that they almost always ask you to put your first name in one little window and then your last name in a separate window? Did you ever notice that? Now you're thinking about it, it's right, it's the truth, right? Almost always ask you to separate your name out, first name and last name. Sometimes they ask you to add on like a prefix or a suffix. Sometimes they ask you, other stuff, but almost always first name, last name, at the very least, different windows. Which, it's interesting that nobody thinks about that, because wouldn't it be easier to program just one window and have people type their whole name in there? Because that extra input field is extra programming, right? Each one of those takes 4 or 5 lines of code. So why does the computer industry do this? If they have a list of people that they need to organize for their taxes, how do we organize people's names? Yeah, you do the last name and then a comma and then a first name and then you alphabetize the last names, right? But you ever notice, like, when you log back into, I don't know, Snapchat, Instagram, Facebook, whatever, even Amazon, whatever, and usually the upper right corner, the upper left-hand corner, it usually says, "Hi, John," or "Welcome back, John." It doesn't usually say something like, "Welcome back, Smith, comma, John," does it? Because that would be less personal. So they do this, separate the name thing on purpose, because they want to deal with your name differently in different situations. A computer would not be able to separate people's names. If they had you put your whole name in one input field, the computer would not be able to figure that out. People's names are too different. Some people have, 1-part first names or 2-part first names, or a hyphenated last name or 2-part last names. Some people use their middle names. You got nicknames, you got Mr., Miss, you got all this crap. Computers can't separate that out. So what they do is they make you separate your name the way you want it separated, and then they use the computer to put it back together in whatever way they want to manipulate your name, which the computer's really good at. It's really good at putting stuff back together. It's really bad at pulling names apart because they're too different. So what we're going to do in column D right here is we're going to write an equation that puts these names back together. Watch what happens if I just say that D2 here is equal to A2. See how I just went over there and grabbed what was in A2 and then brought it over here and stuck it in D2, right? It's pretty cool, huh? So we're going to try adding on C2. Notice they're not in order because I want it to say Miss E.D. White, not Mrs. White, not Miss White E.D., right? So I'm doing equals A2 plus C2 and B2. Now watch what happens when I hit enter. Okay, that is a spreadsheet error. And here's what it means. That particular error means that the computer does not understand the value of the numbers I'm feeding it. Why does it not understand the value of these numbers? Because they're not numbers. So we go online, and trust me, there are tons of tutorials online for learning how to use spreadsheet, way beyond what we're talking about here. But we find out that this plus symbol is only for numbers. If we want to do this whole like just slam cells together, right, we have to use a different symbol. And the symbol we use for this is the ampersand. Most people call it the and sign. It's above the 7 on your keyboard. Its official name is the ampersand. Now watch what happens when I hit enter. Boom, baby. Now I have Missy Dwight, which is not exactly what I was looking for, but it is closer, isn't it? So what do I have to add to this to make this say Miss E.D. White rather than Missy Dwight? Spaces. So check this out. I'm going to put some spaces in here. And yeah, I'm kind of exaggerating a little bit because watch what happens when I hit enter. Nothing. Spaces are still in there. See? But nothing happened. That's because this program is a math program and it was designed to ignore spaces. So, to get spaces in there legitimately, we go back online, we look it up, and we find out that there is an old programmer's trick we can use to force the computer to accept a space. And it looks stupid to people like you and me, but computers understand it perfectly. The trick is you take whatever you want to force the computer to accept. In this case, it's a space. And you put that inside quotation marks. So we need a space right here in front of C2, right? So right there, I'm going to do quote, space, quote. And notice that my C2 and my B2 aren't lit up anymore. They're not colored. That's because right there in front of C2, I need an and sign. All the components of the equation have to be glued together with those ampersands. If you add a component, you got to add an ampersand to keep the glue going. Now watch what happens when I hit enter. Now I've got Miss E. Dwight. Sweet. And because I have quotation marks here, it doesn't matter what I put in between them. The computer is forced to accept them. That's what the quotes do for you. And quotes have been very special to computers ever since computers have existed. So this is actually a pretty old trick. And I got to do the same thing in front of B2. I'm going to do another quote, space, quote, throw in another and sign to light up the B2 or attach the B2 to the end of the equation. And then when I hit enter, notice what I get. Miss E.D. White. There's only one thing missing. Notice that all of these titles are abbreviations. What goes to the end of an abbreviation? Period. But in this program, that little dot is not a period. It is a decimal point. So we have to force it again, which means we need quotes. Luckily, we've got quotes right here where we already need them. So we're just going to throw a period right behind that first quotation mark. So now I have equals A2 and quote, period, space, quote, and C2, and quote, space, quote, and B2. It looks gnarly, doesn't it? But here's the million-dollar question. Why did I spend all the time working out this equation when I could have just typed Miss E.D. White like 5 seconds? Because magic fill. Shazam. Done. If this list had 5,000 names in it, would you really want to type them all? Or would you want to spend the time to get that equation worked out? Yeah. I think so. All right, for people that need it still, well, this worksheet is done. So if you got it done, you can save it and turn it in. If you don't have it done, there's the equation. I'm coming around.